What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is your buddy, Dr. J. Phoenix Singh, coming at you to be able to answer some valued viewers' questions. Now, you guys know me. Usually, I don't do these viewer response videos live, but today I have a little bit of extra time before I have tonight's engagement. And so because of that, I figured that I would go live because a few of the questions that I've got here, I can answer in what I hope to be a pretty concise way. And I got a bunch of them, and I want to make sure that I can just kind of knock them out for each of you. Usually, I like to make kind of one-on-one response videos. Again, these are ones that I think that I can kind of just knock out during this brief session. So if anybody's going to come into the room, it would be absolutely fantastic to see you. As always, and per usual, if you guys have any questions, make sure to ask them or put them in the comments below. Please do like this video. It helps out the channel a ton, okay? So what I'm going to do is you guys may see me looking here. I'm not looking at you, though, not right now, okay? Right now, I'm just looking at these different questions that I've got, okay? So first question is from Muhammad. Muhammad, thank you so much for watching, mate. I appreciate you. Muhammad left this comment on the video called 5 Tips for International Applicants to Postdocs in the United States. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to check out that video. It's a pretty good one. So here is the question from Muhammad. Muhammad said, thank you for your video. I have a question. Why is this a traditional question in the postdoc interview? And then here's the question, okay? The question is, do you prefer working in academia or industry? And Muhammad says, I do not understand the impact of the answer of this question on the decision of the professor to bring me into his lab or not. Okay, Muhammad, this is a great question. Let's go ahead and I'll get this answered for you. Long story short, it depends on kind of the field that you're in. But if you're in a field like psychology, for example, or engineering, for instance, where, or biology, let's say, you could go into industry, or it's something where you could go into academia. The thing is that if you're doing a postdoc, the individual you're doing the postdoc with presumably is a full-time faculty member. If they're a full-time faculty member, then the people that they want to train up and work with are not people who are going to go into full-time industry. The likelihood of that is exceptionally low. Now, why is that? Because think about if these guys have money to have a postdoc, Mohammed, right? This usually means that there's some grant funding that's involved. Not always, but oftentimes. And the thing is, where does that grant funding come from? Well, people have to apply for it, right? People have to apply to be able to get grant funding. And so that's the thing about this, is that if you end up in a situation where you're doing a postdoc in something that in the US would be called like an R1, where grant funding is involved in some way, shape, or form, then what that means is that these folks want you to go into academia as well so that you can go and get grant money and you can give them some of it, right? They can serve as a co-PI, they can serve as a co-I, as the co-investigator, right? Or a consultant on the grant in some way, shape, or form, because this is one of the ways that they get paid. Right? You guys know on the channel, I always talk about this concept of following the money. If you follow the money, you can end up learning a ton about how this system works behind the scenes. People don't like to talk about that, but it's true. Now, if you don't go into academia and all of a sudden there's no grant money and all of a sudden there's no opportunity to be the co-author on papers of yours in the future because you won't be writing papers, you're going to be in industry, right? So all of a sudden these folks are supposed to spend 1 to 3 years with you in a postdoc. They get no additional articles out of it afterwards. You're not going to have your own grad students, very unlikely, right, if you go into industry. And the thing is, if you did have grad students, then possibly they would be writing papers and they would ask the supervisor to be on that thing, the postdoc supervisor to be on that paper, but you're not going to have students. So that doesn't really matter either. So at the end of the day, there's really no benefit for them taking you on as a postdoc, right? If you want to go into industry. And there are in some fields what we call industry postdocs. I actually have a separate video on industry postdocs. Make sure to check it out on the channel. We got a lot of great postdoc stuff, right? And if this is something where you're in grad school right now, maybe you just got accepted to grad school. You're like, yeah, but Dr. Singh, well, why would I think about a postdoc right now? Well, it's actually a great idea to be able to start thinking about what you want to do after the doctorate, even if it's something where you're right in the middle of it right now. I know about you guys. For me, honestly, it really helped me kind of focus on that light at the end of the tunnel to be able to have that kind of a mindset. So that's the reason why this would impact what the target postdoc supervisor would think about you, Muhammad, okay? So at the end of the day, what you should say is you prefer working in academia. That's what it is, okay? So that's question number 1 that I wanted to answer today, guys. Question number 2, let me bring this one up. So today, welcome to everybody who's just joined us. I'm literally just doing rapid fire answering some valued viewers' comments. And if you guys have questions, I'd love to hear from you as well. Okay, next one. Do you need a master's to get into a doctoral program? Was a video that I made a couple weeks ago. Grace always has wonderful questions. This was Grace's question on this one. Grace says, thank you for this video, Dr. Singh. I've been wondering this question for a while. How'd you become so good at stats? The stats classes I took at undergrad level didn't really prepare me well enough for research. I've been self-studying stats, but do not have any systematic structure to follow. Can you recommend some ways for me to further improve my knowledge and skills on statistics? Grace, is a great question, right? It's one of these situations where undergraduate stats, the likelihood that it's going to seriously prepare you is very low. I'm an idiot, Grace, because when I was an undergraduate, I decided that I was going to take stats during the summer because I wasn't a big stats fan, which is ironic because I eventually became an epidemiological statistics professor, right, in Norway. So it's like, how the heck did that happen, right, for a guy who, really didn't like math, period, and really struggled with stats. I remember when I was in high school, Grace, I took APs, like advanced placement, like college level stats. Or like not really college level looking back, but like introductory stats, right? The course was called AP Stats. And I still remember it was the only class of my entire life that I had to go and see a tutor for. And even going to see the tutor, Grace, was so hard. I really struggled. So then when I got into undergrad, I was like, I hate stats. I just want to be a clinician. I don't want to bother with this nonsense research stuff. So I knew that if I stayed over the summer, Grace, that I could take stats in 3 weeks. And I was like, yo, that sounds pretty good to me. And so I took it. And I had 2 wonderful professors, Sarah and Jen. I still remember, they're awesome. And what ended up occurring was that when that was finished, I was like, okay, now I got the stats knowledge that I know. And usually what happens is that you cover things like z-tests and t-tests and chi-square tests of goodness and fit and independence and, usually ANOVAs and these sorts of things, right? And that's the idea here, is that we do all this stuff. We talk about different forms of correlation, and then usually we get to regression, and then that's usually where things stop. But those of you who are in grad school right now, or if you're a postdoctoral fellow, or if you're a faculty member, you know how elementary that is. I mean, the last time you used like a true z-test, not a Fisher z or some other z transformation, but like an actual z-test, I'm quite confident I've never used one like ever under any circumstance, right? So this is just one of those situations where to be able to think about stats and learning stats, what I want you to remember, Grace, in terms of why it's so important, is that it's the keys to the kingdom. As time passes and you end up reading more and more research literature, what you're going to find is that a lot of people don't know what the F they're talking about when it comes to research. But that's the thing. Like, why would that be? How can they still get the research published? And the reason is that nobody else understands stats or methodological rigor either. In my field, for example, 96% of all research studies use a given stat. It's called the area under the receiver operating characteristic curve, also known as the AUC. And the AUC is almost always 0.7. And so what happens, welcome everybody who just came in here. Please do hit the thumbs up button. I appreciate it. And Louise, I'll definitely hit you up made in a second. I just saw your message. I appreciate it. So here's the idea, right? In 96% of these studies use this stat, and over 50% of the studies misinterpret it. It's always 0.7, and my field is about predicting the likelihood of future violence. So people say, hey, 0.7, that means that the tool is accurate 70% of the time, or 70% of people who I say, yeah, they're going to go and offend, they go and offend. But that is not what the AUC means. The AUC essentially means what's the probability that a randomly selected